In my book, Bacon and the Art of Living, the first chapter is Bacon, my teacher. And I want to expand on that concept a little bit. It sounds a little bit melodramatic, but it is true in a fundamental way that a study of meat and bacon transforms one's view of life in a fundamental way. I want to start the discussion with the concept of domestication. We started domesticating animals, and people who studied domestication realized and they noticed certain feature changes in the animals that's being domesticated. We take them out of the wild, we feed them, we provide them with a shelter, and we remove the fear of predators, the need for them to run away from predators or hide or compete with predators in the wild. When that happens, there's certain characteristic changes that happens to the animals. Let's take pigs for example. The bristles on their back disappear, their legs become shorter, the menacing look in their face disappears, it becomes more round, the elongated snout becomes a little bit shorter, and they still remain skittish and all those type of things, but their appearance starts to change. The same thing we notice with other domesticated animals, with other farmyard animals, cattle and sheep and goats and chickens. Right? They all go through these similar type of changes, physical changes. When you think of what domestication is, you realize that if domestication is the removal of these things, the removal of the need to go and hunt every day and to compete so fiercely with other predators or other animals in the wild and with the elements and find shelter and all those type of things, you very soon realize that humans are nothing more than a domesticated animal. Now bear with me, this is going to be important to the issue of nutrition, and it's going to come back to very practical things in our daily life that we can do to live more healthy. And ultimately it's going to speak to the issue of the use of nitrates and nitrites in meat science, which is a big issue and something that I've dealt with extensively in the Earthworm Express and in Bacon and the Art of Living. Bear with me. So we start with domestication. Animals are domesticated, humans are domesticated. Animals, right? And when you compare some of the oldest photos that were taken of humans 100 or odd years ago, when the camera were invented and camera photography became widely available in the world, we noticed that if you look at those photos, no matter where those people are from, they in general look more menacing than we look today. So you can see similar appearance changes in humans, even just from the time when when the camera became widely available and where we are today. And so even the existence of cities, there's a lot of debate and a lot of stuff that can be said about it, but the fact that cities exist is a conduit for the domestication of humans. The animals thrive, the domestication happened on the farmyard, and that sheltered environment provided everything that they needed for domestication, and similarly the cities provided everything that we as humans needed for domestication. So a lot of things sprouted from that. Okay, right, park the matter of domestication for a second and let's go to the human brain. Now we know we have two brains. We have the primitive brain and we have the developed brain, and the one is superimposed upon the other one. Okay, the primitive brain wants us to run less because we don't know what is waiting around the corner for us, right? Conserve our energy. The second thing is we want to eat. When the food source is available, we want to eat. There's no such thing as overindulging. The fat that you put on today, you're going to need tomorrow in the years of want, right? We are going to be fiercely competitive in terms of a mate. Right? There's not going to be, that is our primitive brain, right? Now, the sophisticated brain is planning ahead. It is saying, hang on, right? We need to be healthy, we need to plan for the future and all those type of things. It is the sophisticated brain that planned the domestication of animals. And by domesticating animals, we domesticated ourselves. Right? We took ourselves out of the wild and we brought ourselves into what we now say is a modern era of where we are modern humans. Well, my contention will be that a lot of what we consider more modern is seriously a step backwards. Okay, now the relation of all of this to nutrition. Right? We scientists today are trying to find what was very popular in the past, and that is the pursuit for the elixir of immortality. Right? We want to live forever, and we thought there's a drink or there's a substance that we can consume, and that's going to allow us to live forever. Right? There's interesting parallels, which I also wrote extensively about, between that and meat curing, and I think it's one of the things that made meat curing very attractive, because it seemed to bring meat back to life again and give a longevity to the life. And so the thought was that if it can do this to meat, surely if we consume these substances, it can also have similar effects on our bodies. So we're looking for this elixir of immortality, the spring of eternal youth. And we're trying to do that by genetic engineering. So in terms of genetic engineering, the following must be said. Number one, we've been genetically engineering things for a very, very long time. We domesticated all kinds of plants and seeds and crops and legumes and all those kind of things. We domesticated animals. Right? We bred out certain undesirable characteristics, and we focused in on the type of thing that we want. The round, fat pigs of the past, Chinese pigs, called lard pigs because of the fat. There are a lot of fat in their bodies. We change them to become longer, and the loins become straighter so that we can make bacon out of it, right? And so that we can have less fat on the animal. So much so that today's landrace pigs have very little fat, too little fat actually. The beetroot was originally looked like a carrot, more yellow in appearance, thin little thing. And as we domesticated it, the bulb grew bigger and bigger and bigger and took on this beautiful red color. That's what we liked. That is, we engineered it in that way. We bred it. We cultivated it in that way with animal, plants, or whatever, breeding or cultivating. Right. So that's in terms of the. But by the same token, my point is this: as we are domesticating ourselves, what we find is that some of these substances, which are completely benign in any other environment, right? Let me be specific. In our environment as early humans, completely benign, right? We see that these substances, which is part of human nutrition, part of the world we live in, right? We can't get away from these things, turn nasty and cancerous and all kinds of other diseases associated with it. When we consume it in a body that is overweight, that does not exercise, right, and that smoke, for example. So by the things that we do, the environment that we put that food substances in, we're causing it to become all those things. So let's take nitrites as an example, which is my point. Nitrites is not only benign in the human body, but it is extremely beneficial. You cannot get away from nitrites. Physiologically, you cannot function without nitrites. And the body relies on dietary nitrites in terms of us managing cardiovascular conditions or episodes, and maintain a healthy balance in our body. Nitrates and nitrites are absolutely essential for these things. Right? But that is in a fit human body where nothing is consumed in excess. Because if we consume bacon in excess or ham in excess, of course the amount of nitrates and nitrites which we allow into our body is far higher than it would ever have been. And so it turns against us. Right? And for us to first of all say that the problem is the nitrates and the nitrites. Well, guys, the problem is the sugars, that is the fats. It is the nitrates and the nitrites. It is the salt. It is the potassium. It is the magnesium. It is the calcium. I can go on and list dangerous substances for the human body all day. And what you will find is that those things are part and parcel of our everyday diet. We cannot get away from those things. Right? The problem is, though, in the wrong body. Okay, I want to come back to that. Let me add this. The earliest explorers to the Cape of Good Hope, most southern point in Africa, the earliest explorers who landed there encountered the people there called the Khoi. The Khoi were pastoralists who migrated down from Africa, from West Africa over many years, landed up in South Africa, in the Cape region. And the earliest writers talks about the fact that they had amazing longevity. They could become very old. I have authors, I've looked at authors who claimed that they regularly become older than 100 years. So, which flies completely in the face of people, of people who say that in ancient times we would become only 30 or 40 years old before, and that would be our lifespan, and 60, 70 years is a fairly modern development, and brought about by modern science and those kind of things, but it's complete nonsense. There's evidence from the Khoi that they became extremely old. Now, whether the calendar was dated whether they understood time and the importance of celebrating birthdays and recording those kind of things as we would today, that is debatable. But what cannot be debated is that those people became extraordinarily old. Now, if you look at their nutrition, there is solid evidence that I found that they knew about salt and the benefits of salt. But you know something that I can't find? I cannot find salt in their diet. The only place that I could find where salt was used was when they dried out grasshoppers. But in meat, they never use it. In fact, condiments, we're scouring the annals. People today are telling us either use these plants in the medicine, in the food, for condiments, and that plant and this and the next thing. For most part, we are scratching and we are trying to find something that is not there in the historical records, or if it is there or where it is there, it is very sparsely spread through history. For most part, they did not use condiments. They definitely didn't use salt in their food, and they drank water. Yeah, they invented meat, and that became. But they didn't drink wine, wine from honey every day. Not nearly to the extent that we do today. So now we take this concept of nutrition, we understand the concept of domestication, we bring these things together, and we realize that part of the human problem is that we have been domesticated. We are domesticating ourselves. And so the answer is, how do we live a more fruitful and productive and healthy life? Is undomesticate ourselves. We are killing ourselves in the environment that we live in. We are killing ourselves with a fridge being fully stocked every single day, and we can at will go and fetch whatever we need. Skipping of meals, it becomes very important. Regular exercise becomes very important because we don't have predators who's chasing us, or enemies that we need to run for our lives once a day or regularly. So the answer to a lot of these things become that we need to domesticate ourselves. The problem is then not the calcium and the magnesium and the nitrites and the sodium and all these kind of things. It is the excess forms that we ingest all these things in. And so again, we need to undomesticate ourselves. I've often heard people say that doctors want you to eat only things that is bland and drink water. And there's truth in that, because that is how we've been engineered. And so we have these two brains now who are speaking to each other. Our primitive brain and who says exercise less, eat more. In other words, conserve energy, get more energy stored in your body for when you're going to need it one day. And then the intelligent brain that understands where we are now and the environment that we live in, and says, no, we don't need these things, eat less and those kind of things. And it always seems as if there's this war between the two. Now, it is a concept that is familiar to us from religion. In the Christian tradition, we call it the Holy Spirit. We have these voices that speak to each other, the good and the evil. In Hinduism and in Buddhism, we have this concept of nirvana, and the fact that we need to say no to our earthly desires and our bodily desires. That is saying no to the primitive brain. That's what they mean when they say that. But it is the same concept. It is pervasive through human religion. It is one of the first things that we've noticed, is that as we develop consciousness, we realize that there is another level of consciousness, that there are these two dogs in the analogy that's fighting with each other, and they're in opposition to each other. I walk through Spar now to go and buy myself some lunch. And as I walk through Spar, I walk past the beer aisle. And I'm feeling a little bit sick today, and I had a viral infection this whole week. And when I walk past the beer aisle, I thought to myself, man, I can really do with a beer. I mean, I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling not well. I'm feeling unwell. I need to give myself some energy again. Won't it be good? Just 2 or 3 beers. Let's forget about the hops and forget about the sugar and forget about all the bad things about drinking beer. I'm going to ignore all of that and I want the beer. And so I can't walk through Spar without finding these two forces fighting with each other. And the answer to all these things that we have really becomes make a decision to undomesticate yourself, to walk more, to run more, to eat less. Right? And many of these diets, a friend of mine, Darby, said it to me, and I think he's absolutely right, that many of these diets, the benefit of it is simply in the fact that we, at the end of the day, eat less. Whether it is the paleo diet or this or that or the next thing, it doesn't matter. You just eat less. So we find ways to undomesticate ourselves, so to speak. Another story from my family is that my grandfather developed asthma as a young child, and his parents let him sleep outside for a year. What did they do? They undomesticated him. They took the comforts of life away, and it had an effect on his body that he never suffered from asthma. His grandfather passed away from asthma. It was in his family. Another friend of mine from a pharmacy in Cape Town tells the story that her father would tell her to go and sit in the shed where they kept the horses and breathe in the fumes every morning from the horse manure. And she developed asthma, and that cured her. Life to this day, she never had asthma again. Now, whether those specific anecdotal stories, what is the effect and what's specifically the chemistry and the physiology behind all of that is, I don't know. And that is not the purpose. That I'm not trying to make that point. The point is that there's tons of anecdotal evidence that the act of merely undomesticating ourselves have huge benefits to our body. For example, if you take this example of the horse manure, in the time when we were cave dwellers and we defecated in the cave, you look at that and say, I can imagine that there would be some health benefits to that. It would not be this unhealthy mess that we sometimes think of when we envisage, when we think about the past. So in the context of meat science, then this notion of the two brains fighting against each other, the fact that the primitive brain is the one that wants us to conserve and do less and sleep with as many women as we can, and all that type of nonsense, or from the women's side, sleep with as many men as they can and only go for the handsome guy with a six-pack, and or for the guy who can provide for her and her offspring, or whatever the case may be. There's all kinds of reasons, but the brain then comes in. The intelligent brain says no to that, and it supersedes that. And we have this constant conflict between these two things, and there is no reason to run to religion to explain all these things. There's physiological reasons for that. And when we come to nutrition, the basis of nutrition is not to find the food that will not make you fat. The most important thing in nutrition is to undomesticate yourself. Go to what was done earlier. Remember, even fire, even cooking. In terms of the great time span of humanity, cooking even by itself is a modern invention. It is domestication. Us finding pleasure, almost in a sense like poetry, toying with the things that as a functional reason in our mind, language, the rhythm of language, the thing that make it possible for us to communicate with each other. We take that, and in a sense we start playing with it, with the words and the rhyme and the concept and the rhythm and those kind of things, and out of this music and poetry and art develop, and that is all stuff that we do in the more intelligent brain part, where the primitive brain responds to, and then there's the thing that it may be the primitive brain that's responding to the rhythm. And what was that function in antiquity? But as far as nutrition is concerned, we can for sure be confident that the issue is not the nitrates and the nitrites in the bacon. The issue is us. It makes it hard choices to make, but the evidence is so clear. And these are all the things that I've learned, or this is another thing that I've learned from meat and from bacon. And so, not crazy way. Bacon is my teacher about life, but in a real way, by teaching